Hi, my name is Ann V. Brady, and I will be reading from my book, A New Beginning, the story of my adoption, life, and service, illustrated by Eric C. Brady. I will be reading Chapter 4. Aside from nursing classes, I had to take certain mandatory courses: gym, history or geography, social studies, English, science, and math. My first semester classes were chemistry, biology, cultural anthropology, and American literature. I liked my biology and chemistry courses. In biology, we started with the biology of plants. I found plants very boring. In biology, the teacher was also boring. You didn't have to take notes in class. That was because the teacher taught us our lessons verbatim from the textbook. I was happy when we moved on to the biology of animals. Anthropology was an interesting subject. We learned from both the textbooks and from videos of different types of cultures. Our teacher showed us two films. One was Nanook of the North, the other was The Holy Ghost People. Afterwards, the teacher would explain about the cultures and what they showed in the movies. I liked the teacher, but he was weird. He was an older, balding man with white hair. He would tell really awful jokes and laugh at his own jokes. I learned a lot in this class. American literature was an interesting course. We had to read from a textbook with stories that dated from when the Pilgrims first arrived to the present day. We read stories from a preacher, Cotton Mather's, Nathaniel Hawthorne, and Herman Melville, to name a few authors. Some of the stories we read and were tested on were The Scarlet Letter and Moby Dick. Our English teacher told us what he thought the meaning of Moby Dick was. He told he said that it was about a man wanting to go to bed with his mother. The whale was his mother and the sea was the bed. All of us students were astounded by this because it was really an out in the left field theory. Personally, I always thought it was about a man's obsession with revenge and then how it hurt those around him and ended up destroying him. I looked at the different sororities at Adelphi. Some wanted students to jo- So many wanted students to join them. I visited several and decided to join Tri Delta. I liked them because not only were they small, but the sisters of the sorority came across as genuinely nice. They were not snobs and they were interested in more than just partying. Initiation was a treasure hunt across campus. This was because initiation rites were being discouraged. They didn't want people getting drunk or hurt. My sorority mom was Chinese. We had a diverse group of girls. We were asked by one sorority to co host a party they were giving. There were boys from another school's fraternity coming to the party. We agreed and we attended the party. We were having fun until I was talking to this cute guy. He asked me what sorority I was in. When I told him Tri Delta, he told me that on his campus, Tri Delta girls were considered easy and no one would go out with them. He then walked away from me. I told my sorority mom what he said. We all got together and decided to leave. We went to a nearby bar and had a few drinks while complaining about the party and the fraternity guys. They were jerks. We stayed a few hours and left for our homes. One night, my sorority mom invited us all to a Chinese restaurant. We had a lot of fun. I learned how to use chopsticks. They brought out what she called a poo poo platter. I thought that was dinner. Then the main course came out. The food was delicious. I had trouble finishing the food because there was so much. Second semester of classes were chemistry, biology, perspectives in nursing, general psychology, and introduction to sociology. In nursing class, the teacher went over the history of nursing, how some people were biased against nurses, and what we would be learning in nursing classes. Teacher explained that the original nurses were service girls that followed military camps during war. They would tend to sick or hurt soldiers, along with supply sexual services to military men. She explained that because of that, a lot of people still look down on nurses as being loose and tawdry. In psychology, we learned about different psychiatrists such as Freud and Jung. We learned about their theories and beliefs. Sociology was interesting because we not only learned about how people relate to each other and their environment, but how crowding in a city or poverty can change how they act. Our tests were open book tests, but our answers had to be essays. We had to state an opinion and defend it with facts. In chemistry, there was a male student that sat next to me in class. He was cute. He had brown hair and brown eyes. He complained about how hard chemistry was and said that he was having a hard time. He was worried he would fail chemistry and he wouldn't be able to go to med school. He said that he hated science but had to take it to get into med school. I suggested that he should look into nursing. He vehemently opposed that suggestion. He said that nursing was for women, not men. I told him there were men in the nursing program. Some were medics returning from Vietnam, others were retired firemen. He said he didn't care. He was set on being a doctor. One day I checked out the Newman Club on campus. It's a place where Catholic kids meet and get to socialize with other Catholics. It was all right, but it just wasn't for me. At a local church, I joined a young adults club for singles between the ages of 18 and 35 years old. It wasn't affiliated with the church and was non denominational. We met in the basement of the boys' school. When I went out at night, my mom had one request. I wake her up when I got home. That way she would know that I got home safe. I always did wake her when I got home and talk about what I did. We went to clubs, bars, and played softball during the summer. I met Bill there. He was tall and had sandy blonde hair and brown eyes. Whenever we went out with a group, we somehow ended up together. Eventually, we decided to date. Bill was a nice guy. I even invited him to a dance over at Delphi University. That's when it got weird, at least to me. While we were dancing, he would dance close, then he'd be on the other side of the room. In fact, half the time I couldn't find him until he was back to dancing with me. After several months, I mentioned that if I ever married, I might adopt children. Bill proceeded to let me know that if a woman had a child out of wedlock, she should take care of her mistake herself. I looked straight at him and said, I'm adopted. He started to try and stumble out a reply and failed miserably. There were some interesting guys in our club. One guy said his dream girl was Wonder Woman. Not Linda Carter, but Wonder Woman. I also met a guy who said he was divorced. He told me that he had found out the day before he was married that he was adopted. That's when his parents felt he should be told. He said he felt betrayed, lied to, and was confused. One couple met at the Young Adults Club, Howie and Marilyn. They eventually got married. During winter break, my parents took me with them to Barbados. It was beautiful there. Our taxi driver was an older man, about in his 50s. It was the first time I had seen someone with hair growing out of his ears. He was generally nice and informative. We went shopping for souvenirs so my mom could buy original Hummel figurines. They were half the price of what you would pay in the U.S. We went to the beach and met a lovely English couple. They told us that they were wearing heavy sunscreen because they easily burned. We ate at several restaurants while we were there. They had dolphin on the menu, which I tried. It was the fish, not the mammal. I loved it. We also enjoyed listening to the calypso bands at night. One day while walking on the beach, we met a beach bum who did caricatures. He drew a caricature of me and we bought it. It was incredibly good. I talked with him as he drew. Not only was he cute, but he was interesting to talk to. In Barbados, they value education highly. Everyone goes to school, including college. Kids all look so cute in their pristine school uniforms. Unfortunately, after college, most of the jobs are working in the sugarcane fields or in restaurants as busboys and waiters. The waiters tried to get American customers to sponsor them so they can go to America and get a job that used their college degree. I spent a lot of time over at Bob and Betty's house. I enjoyed spending time with them, especially the kids. I watched a lot of Barney and Mr. Rogers with the kids. Towards the end of summer, we all went to the Hamptons. We stayed in a hotel in Hampton Bays. I stayed in a room with my parents, and Bob and Betty and the kids stayed in another room. We had rooms right on the beach. We spent time on the beach swimming, making sandcastles, and getting tan. I also spent a lot of time shopping with Mom and Betty. After Bob and I noticed frogs on the beach, we decided to have frog races. I got a trash can from our hotel room. Then Bob and I chased frogs all over the beach. When we caught them, we put them in the trash can. When we thought we had enough, we all gathered in my parents' hotel room. Bob and I explained to everyone that he and I would each choose a frog from the trash can. Then we would place the frogs next to each other by the bed. Whichever frog hopped to the door first was let loose on the beach. The loser had to race the next frog picked from the trash can. All went well and everyone was having fun until one of the frogs headed towards Bobby and he started to cry. We were able to steer the frog towards the door to finish the race. Finally, we set free the last frog when all the other frogs had been set free. During that time, my parents and Bob and Betty bought a house in Hampton Bays. They decided to split the cost in half, and the title was in both families' names. They got a deal as they bought it from a stockbroker who was in arrears in paying alimony to his ex-wife. Because they owed a lot in back alimony, he didn't have a choice but to sell the house. It was on Romano Drive overlooking Tiana Bay. It was an all-year-round house rather than the usual summer house. It had a gorgeous view in the back of the house. Betty told me that she was going to take a course in ceramics. She asked if I would like to go with her. I told her of course I would. I would arrange my courses so I could come over after classes and spend the night. I would then take the next day off. We started going to classes and learned how to process the sculptures. We would sand and smooth them. Then we would fire them in the kiln. Then we would pick out paints, glazes, and stains to adorn our ceramic sculptures. We made jewel boxes, vases, etc. It was a lot of fun and we learned a lot about ceramics. I still attended meetings of the Young Adults Club. At one meeting, Bill brought a friend of his, Joe. Joe was very tall and skinny. He had brown curly hair and brown eyes. Joe was cute and nice. He was comfortable to talk to. Eventually, Joe and I started dating. Occasionally, I felt bad about dumping Bill, but the three of us went out together sometimes, and Bill didn't seem upset. At home, I always listened to a rock and roll station that played Imus in the morning. One of his bits that he did was he pretended to be Reverend Billy Sol Hargis. He opened the show with this little ditty. I don't care if it rains or freezes, long as I got my plastic cheeses riding on dashboard of my car. I can go 100 miles an hour as long as I got my plastic cheeses glued up there by a pair of fuzzy dice. It was hilarious. In my sophomore year, I took human anatomy, Shakespeare, scuba, contemporary physics, and human development, a nursing course. Human anatomy required a lot of dissection. We dissected a sheep's eye, a mink, and we got to see part of a dead person. The mink was extremely greasy. In fact, you could feel the grease through the vinyl gloves we had to wear. The hardest part was memorizing all the bones, nerves, arteries, veins, tendons, and muscles. The organs were easy to memorize. One of the students, after we had dissected a sheep's eye, asked the teacher for an extra eye. She was going to mail it to her ex-boyfriend as a Christmas present. She said he was very squeamish and it would upset him. I took scuba diving in lieu of taking gym class. We had the lecture portion of the class and the practical use part of the class. We practiced scuba diving in the school's indoor pool. At the end of the course, we could take a certification test and become certified. In lecture, we learned techniques about social life, how to use tanks and snorkels, etc. There was a lot of math, and we learned about how to prevent the bends. I did better in physics in college than I did in high school. I got an A in physics, and in high school, I got a C. And that is all for today. And I appreciate y'all listening to me. Have a great weekend. If you're in the storm areas, stay safe. And I'll be sharing, you can, below is links to buy my book, A New Beginning, the story of my adoption, life, and service. And I will be sharing this on Facebook and on Blue Sky. And thank you for listening to me. Bye.